Alright everyone, so the Fantastic Four First Steps is officially released in theaters, and I have to say, the more I think on this movie, I think it is a great Marvel movie that they've put out in a while, and especially from character development to the story and to the plot for how Marvel's first family was handled. And now we are officially going into spoiler territory. Not only am I going to give you guys my spoiler thoughts on it, but I'm also going to be breaking down the ending and the two post-credit scenes, specifically the mid-credit for what it means for Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, based on everything that they set up. So let's not waste any time. And so, if you're new to that, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so it's on any future videos. But now, let's get right into it. And now, I want to start off by saying that I just generally like how this film and the entire story and how it feels grounded. It feels totally standalone without feeling like overshadowed by a ton of things of the broader MCU, because it is set in an alternate universe, especially in the 60s. I mean, you know, for the fact that the first frame of the movie was the Baxter Building, and the text says Earth 828, and says, hey, we're in another universe, and that's how we are introduced to the Fantastic Four, especially for how the population looks at them. And now, because they are famous, they are astronauts, they have gained their cosmic abilities. That's with everything that goes on. It totally makes me appreciate the film even more, especially from the stunning layout and the visuals, and especially with like the whole concept of the movie is that with the Fantastic Four, that have to go up against their threat, which is Galactus, who plans to spare Earth, and for Reed and Sue to give up Franklin Richards, that is their son. And I totally like for how Galactus was portrayed, and especially for how Ralph Ineson donned this role, and it feels totally terrifying. It feels totally menacing, especially in IMAX. Out of all the characters, I have a feeling that Johnny and Ben both delivered on the humor and the comedy for the way that these characters were handled, and there's great character development that goes around and around in this movie, and especially as we have a future retro reality 60s New York, especially with all the citizens. I definitely think Marvel really nailed every aspect that we need to know. And now, just with like how everything has come about, especially for what Reed knows about science, especially for when he uses that teleportation device that he wanted to test on, especially with Johnny, because he wanted to move that egg from one place to another, and that was his plan that will come later in the third act of the movie. And I just like how they develop Reed Richards as the smartest man alive, and Pedro Pascal definitely delivered on every single aspect of that character as well. And it's especially with Reed and Sue for what they have with their son Franklin Richards, with the civilians that ask the Fantastic Four like if they're safe, and Reed replies by saying that he does not know. And with their encounter with Galactus, and what they negotiate about is Galactus plans to spare the world so that Reed and Sue give up their son Franklin to him, and that's why we see Reed communicating with the civilians that with their negotiation with Galactus, it is revealed that he plans to devour on the world so that Franklin could be given up and to be put in his arms. Essentially, for what he does is to devour other planets. The Silver Surfer tells them that their planet is marked for death and that they're the protectors of this world. And now, let's go over the ending to this movie, specifically with the third act, with the Fantastic Four defeating Galactus. And now with Reed, that uses standing teleportation bridges, at which he uses to network them to transport Earth away from Galactus and to hide them in a different galaxy. And especially for what Reed knows about teleportation, for how it's going to work in this situation, so that Galactus cannot step foot on Earth and even in New York. But as soon as they start to become activated, Silver Surfer quickly destroys him, and then as almost as she is about to destroy the last bridge, and then when Johnny goes in to stop her, and then especially for how he communicates with the Silver Surfer, and I like how the movie uses Johnny's intelligence and his senses and communication, but he really uses his senses to really to protect the family and saving the world from Galactus, as he is willing to take their baby. And now, especially as we learn for how Silver Surfer became the herald of Galactus, like his herald, and that we learn that her real name is Shalabal, and she comes from a planet called Zen-La, even with Shalabal that spared her world for Galactus, and that's how she became his herald. And I believe it is a really emotional story, especially with the Silver Surfer and her background, and it's especially I think with the Shalabal, she really has a change of heart and in a way to defeat Galactus. And now, especially for how the Fantastic Four plan to do this is by using Franklin as bait, and along with Mole Man on his end to negotiate them, evacuate the civilians, as they plan to use Franklin as bait when Galactus enters New York City, but then he later soon finds that the real Franklin is actually in the Baxter building with Herbie. And now, and even with Galactus that soon takes Franklin, what Sue plans to do is to suck Galactus into the void by entering into a portal, and then with Sue that she uses her shield of generating powers to suck him into the void, and especially when Reed that goes in to rescue Franklin, and even with Galactus that stretches him out almost as about to break him, Johnny on his end that he is willing to sacrifice himself by giving him the final push, and in order to defeat Galactus by pushing him into the portal. With this moment of Johnny riding on Ben the Thing, immediately got me cracking up.
What time is it, Ben? What time is it, Ben? No, Johnny. Say it!
That he says, "It's clobbering time," and that line immediately got me cracking up, probably to make the ultimate sacrifice to do that. But now we're the Shalabal, but she makes the sacrifice instead, and it goes along with the void with Galactus too. And so, especially as Sue is about to be, all of her shield generating powers are starting to wave away from her and causing her to die. And then as soon as after they accomplish their mission, that Galactus is defeated, and then that they go to help recover Sue, in a way that they think that she died, and especially as Reed gives Sue a mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to bring her back to life, and as soon after it is no use, they use Franklin. He puts him on her chest, and that, especially with Franklin that has these sort of powers that to bring her back to life. What kind of powers that he holds, it is really, really cool and interesting. And specifically, I think it will really come along in the post-credit scene, which I'm going to break down here in just a second. But as soon as they have accomplished everything, they have celebrated their victory, but then as soon as they are introduced onto a talk show, and then they receive alerts that they have to go on another mission to save the world, the whole family that gets shouted in, and the movie ends with them flying in their fantastic car, ready to go on their mission. And now let's go over, most importantly, the mid-credit scene, and I think it is the most epic thing that Marvel has ever pulled off. And now it takes place 4 years after the Fantastic Four have defeated Galactus, and we see Sue in the living room reading to Franklin. And then as she steps away for a moment, and then she senses that something is wrong, and then she sees a man with a cloak and mask interacting with Franklin, and it is none other than Dr. Doom. As we hear no dialogue and no face reveal, I was probably hoping for a face reveal from Robert Downey Jr. as he is said to be playing Victor Von Doom. As I think that this raises a ton of questions and probably hype for Avengers Doomsday, with Dr. Doom that's planning to use Franklin's powers to dominate the world, and especially for what's going to happen in Avengers Doomsday. It's going to be a big movie, and towards the end of that, it's going to be the beginning of the end for the multiverse saga. And even with the mid-credit scene was directed by the Russo brothers that also directed the mid-credit scene for Thunderbolts, because you see how those two movies are connected because of their involvement towards the end of both movies. And now that we know that with Doctor Doom that would introduce, it's gonna set up Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars in a big way, with a lot of questions that I have, a lot of fans have. I'm pretty sure all of them will be answered in Avengers Doomsday, and the Fantastic Four are going to have big involvement. Yeah, the next Avengers movies are gonna be big as heck, and I cannot wait for it. And with the post-credit scene, it is just a cartoon of the Fantastic Four with the theme playing, and it was nothing too earth-shattering or too many reveals. It was just a nice way to close the movie, and also to summarize it all. And I cannot wait to see these characters being progressed moving forward into the MCU's future, especially for what the Fantastic Four did in order to defeat Galactus, and now with Doctor Doom, that's now going to be even more than a bigger threat than we ever thought. And now that he has Franklin, I thought Fantastic Four First Steps was a really great MCU entry, a great way to kick off Phase 6 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe from the direction of the MCU moving forward. And I'm excited for it all, especially from the ending, especially from the mid-credit scene. It totally got me excited, and the MCU's future is about to be even bigger. So buckle up your seatbelts, MCU fans. We are ready. But that's gonna do it for this video. Just let me know in the comments down below, and what your thoughts on the movie, and thoughts on the ending and the mid-credit scene. And does this get you excited for Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars now with Dr. Doom involved? But let me know all in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to notifications about future videos. You can also follow all my social media, it's all linked down below. And with that, I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.